Professor Borgemeister, this week you gave a talk at the Children's University, of the University of Bonn, about whether you can eat insects, and if yes, do they taste nicely? So, how do they taste?
Well, the ones that we tried there, they were actually quite delicious. We had, say, for the less adventurous clients, we had cookies, where part of the ingredients were insect derived, and they tasted like chocolate cookies, and the children devoured them. And then we had grasshoppers that were basically non-prepared. They were not raw. They were freeze-dried, and then we heated them up a little bit. And I was expecting that that was for the more adventurous clientele, and I was expecting that most of them would say, no, I don't want this. But in reality, I think we had 40 or 50 grasshoppers. We could have had 200. The children were really fighting for them, and most of them liked them. I had 2 or 3, and they taste a bit like peanuts, so they have a nutty taste. Yeah, so it's, cut a long story short, I think insects can taste pretty nice.
How got you interested? How did you get interested in this topic?
Well, first of all, I'm an insect scientist, so insects have always accompanied me in my professional career. Before joining ZEF, I was the head of an insect research center, and to be honest, one of our board members, Arnold van Hoist from Wageningen University, introduced this idea to us, I would say about 2007. And again, to be honest, initially I thought, this is a kind of far-fetched, and is this really going to be important? I had to realize during the last 4, 5, 6 years that I was wrong with this initial doubts or this initial hesitation. This is going to be big. I'm deeply convinced that this is a topic that is going to accompany us for the years to come, both in the food and the feed area. I think the feed area, so basically feed material for other livestock, that is going to be an issue, particularly here in the more developed countries. The reason for this is that protein sources in feed are primarily derived either from fish meal or from soybean. And both of them, fish meal and soybean, have tremendous ecological footprint. I mean, we all know that the oceans are pretty much depleted, or we are in the process of depleting the oceans of fish. So fish meal is completely unsustainable, and we are over harvesting in this respect. So urgent need to find alternative sources for protein. And we all know about how soybeans are produced, particularly in South America, clearing of the Amazon forest, tremendous ecological footprint. So also there's really a great need to find alternative sources of protein, always anticipating this big thing of the 9 million that will be on this planet by 2015, and considering that the 9 billion will be very hungry for animal protein. So if you take these things together, the way we are producing animal protein at present is not going to be sustainable. So there has to be alternatives. There have to be alternatives, and insects for feed. So using protein derived from insects, mass-produced, industrial-produced insects for feed stuff is going to be a big issue.
Yeah. So you already try to make the next generation curious about eating insects. Coming back to the topic of food for humans, it's still uncommon, it's still new in Europe. What do you think makes it so difficult for people getting accustomed to the idea of eating insects? Is it a cultural thing? Is it?
I think it's a cultural thing. I mean, you have certain societies where it's perfectly normal to eat insects. I think the figure is about 1.9 billion people on this planet do consume insects as part of their diet. In Africa, where I lived for quite some time, sometimes you have a region where you have one village which is completely common to eat termites, say for example, and just down the road it's total taboo. So it's very much ingrained. I mean, what you eat is very much ingrained into your social fabric, into your culture, and changing this is not easy. Now, if we talk about the developed world, there I think is going to be quite important how we introduce insects into processed food. In reality, who does look at the small print of what is in your burger? Yeah, your burger is not only beef. There are lots of other things that are in your burger. Now, in 10-15 years, you might see Tribolium castaneum, 3%. That's the common mealworm. Yeah. So I would imagine that this is going to be a component, but there is also a movement, say in the culinary world. Cooks of famous restaurants, I'm thinking for instance of the Noma restaurant in Copenhagen, are getting very, very interested in trying to incorporate insects into their recipes, into their strategy of developing novel food. As a matter of fact, when I lived in Nairobi, there was a team from Noma coming down to Kenya and trying to study from communities in Western Kenya that traditionally eat insects, how they eat them, how they prepare them, and whether they could learn something to take back home to Copenhagen and integrate it into their recipes. I know, for instance, from the before mentioned board member Arnold van Hoijs, professor, now a retired professor from Wageningen University in the Netherlands. The thing is much bigger than here already. It's much more developed. In the Netherlands, you have a movement of chefs that are looking into possibilities of introducing insects, say in canteens, in university restaurants. So there is, the time is right to change our food habits. It's going to take some time. It's going to take some time to overcome what they call the yuck factor, that you say, this looks very awful, but it's possible. We've seen it with other food items that were new on our plate at a given time and that are now pretty normal parts and common parts of our diet. So it is possible to change food habits. It takes some time.
So the around 200 children attending your lecture on Monday, nearly all of them tasted the insects, and how did they respond? There was no yuck factor?
Well, actually, I didn't see any. I mean, I didn't see any child vomiting in the corner. There was no scandal. I was amazed how adventurous and how curious they were. Actually, there were a couple of adults in the room, and I saw a lot more hesitation with the adults than with the kids. The kids were they were interested, they were curious, they wanted to try it out. And if this is kind of a yardstick, I'm pretty optimistic.
Yeah, well then thank you for bringing the idea of insect-based food to Bonn University, and thank you for the interview.
Thank you very much.